Hello everyone, thank you for watching this video. I wanted to make it to address a subject that came up, recently, and someone asked me about it. Someone asked what my opinion about it was, and I feel it's important to talk about it because it is. I feel that we should not have to send a mixed signal to future generations about what. Governance is about, or to make them think that governance is difficult or that governance is rocket science, so to speak. So I decided to do this little video, hopefully about 20 minutes, to show that democracy and the constitution take rocket science out of government or out of governance. Democracy and the constitution take rocket science out of government. The idea of rocket science basically is something that is considered difficult, an area of engagement that is considered highly intellectual and a bit complex. Something that is beyond the understanding of average human beings. However, in reality, we know that there are a number of rocket scientists in the world. The Earth has launched over 20,000 rockets, into space, into the orbit so far. And again, there are also other fields that are quite difficult. You have quantum physics and so on and so forth. But the thing is that if you look at the number of countries that have succeeded politically by reason of good government, there are far more than than the number of rocket scientists that we have in the world, which is about 100, maybe 100, that we have. But a lot of countries have succeeded, a lot of leaders have succeeded in office, which shows that the process of governance doesn't have to be as complicated as some people try to make it look. But here's the thing, if your idea in any field of endeavor or in any engagement, if your idea of a win is not clear, then you will have problems. If your idea of a win is not clear, then you will have problems. If you do not know how to benchmark success, if you do not know how to define success in that field, then the default result, the result by default is failure. It's like setting up a food business, and setting up a food business, and you put someone in charge of it, maybe a salesperson, and you come back one day in the evening and the person tells you that we had over 1,000 people come here to eat today. You would be excited. But when you look into the cash till, or you look into the bank account and discover that there is no money there coming in from the sales of the food, and you ask the person, you said 1,000 people came. How come we do not have the money? And she says, oh, I gave the food out for free because I thought, we are set up to just feed people, not for profit, just want to feed people. You would be shocked. You will say that is a failure. So even though the food has gone, you have not made profit from it. You have not made profit in that business, and therefore you cannot say that that is a success. You cannot say that that is a win. So the idea of a win must always be clearly defined in any field of endeavor. So in football, for example, your idea of a win is the number of goals scored. Now, if you meet somebody who's a football player and you ask him, you say, how was the game today? He says, oh, the game was good. We won the game. And you say, oh, how many goals did you win by? How many goals? What was the score line? And he says, the score line was 5-0. You say, oh, so you guys scored 5 goals. You say, no, we didn't score 5 goals. We dribbled everybody on the field. We dribbled everybody. We dribbled all their players, dribbled the goalkeeper, dribbled the midfielders, dribbled the attackers, dribbled everybody on the pitch. But we didn't put the ball inside the net of the opponent. Inside the net of the opponent. Rather, they put, the ball into our own net. You say this person is confused because the idea of a win in football is not necessarily to dribble. The idea of a win in football is to put the ball in the net, and so whichever side puts the ball in the net wins. So if you have a player on the pitch who does not understand what the idea of a win is, who does not understand what it means to win, in that field of endeavor, then you have a problem. Then you have a problem. Then you have the results. Eventually will be failure. So he's dribbling everybody on the pitch, but he's not putting the ball in the net. That's failure. He doesn't have the idea of a win. Now, in government, what it means to win. What exactly does it mean to win? And this is the heart of the problem. This is why government sometimes looks like rocket science. What does it mean to win? The idea of a win in government has been perfectly defined over the years, and you see this, as we get into it. It is flowing directly from the theory of men like Jeremy Bentham, men like John Stuart Mill, who came up with the whole concept of utilitarianism, which is the father of welfareism that we practice today. It is the idea of a winning government should be the greatest good for the greatest number. The greatest good for the greatest number. The greatest good for the greatest number. In other words, you are trying to improve or touch the lives of as many people as possible, of the maximum number of people that you can in society. So that exactly is the idea of a win in government. Now, clearly understanding that, and don't forget, the idea of welfareism, which I, like I said, was an offshoot of utilitarianism as proposed by those men. Now, welfareism basically is the idea of the well-being of a human being in society, taking care of them and how it should be. So that clearly is the idea of a winning government. Now, a lot of people sometimes think that a win in government is a win for whoever is holding the office. In other words, the fact that I'm here is already a win. They misinterpret the fact that I have won the election. I am now in office. I am now a winner, and therefore I have won. Forgetting that that merely is the starting point. And so, your win is not exactly about yourself, it's about the greatest good for the greatest number in society. That is the aim of government. That is what government should be doing, and that is how we define failure or success in leadership. Now, if you understand this clearly, you would understand why a lot of people feel that government is rocket science, because they simply do not have an idea of what they should be doing in government, and so they complicate the whole thing. But if they understood the idea of democracy, and then if they understood the constitution, they would understand how these things should be played. Now, to understand it, to break it down further, you need to understand the history of society, the history of man, how we came to live in societies, as it were. Starting from, if you're a creationist, if you believe in the creationist theory, or you believe in evolution, whatever side of the divide you fall on, you come to a point where you find human beings living alone, okay, where everybody was alone. But gradually people started to live in societies because people saw the benefits of living in societies. And so people wanted the benefits of living, people saw the benefits of togetherness, people saw the benefits of us, having a community of people, us, having people who are together. In choosing to live together, in choosing to live as a society, people gave up certain rights. But after giving up those rights, they expected certain things to come. There was a certain sort of protection, there were benefits that you expected from those governments. And over the years, over centuries, human beings have tried to come up with laws that govern society, to come up with ideas that should govern society. One of the earliest that we know was the Code of Hammurabi, the Code of Hammurabi of Babylonia. This was before the period of the biblical Moses and or the Quranic Musa. It was before that period. The Code of Hammurabi was a code that tried to teach people how to live and try to prescribe how society will live, what the duty of government was to the people. Then in terms of how societies evolved, people kept on trying different methods. So for instance, you started with the idea of monarchy. Hammurabi, for instance, was a monarch. So you started with that idea, one person who was ruling society, that because it was considered very brilliant, or because it was considered very strong enough to protect the society. But after that person died, and then they appointed the son, after the monarch died, and then they appointed the son of the monarch, which was usually sons back then. They appointed the son of the monarch. Soon they realized that heredity doesn't necessarily guarantee that the child, the offspring, will be able to replicate the successes of the father. And so what they did was they started moving away from that system of monarchy to aristocracy, a system where you had a group of people connected by blood. In other words, you had ruling families, all connected by blood, and then they would pick whichever was the best among them to be the king. But then they discovered that the king himself seems to have too much power. The king himself seems to have too much power, and why concentrate in the hands of these few people? And so they moved on to another system of oligarchy, which was trying to balance it with having different families, different noble families that were all strong. And this continued for a while, up till the time of the ancient Greeks. The Greeks were they were a very civilized ancient society back then, and Athens was the center point of the Greek kingdom. As Athens began to grow, to expand into the Greek kingdom, to take on other Greeks, more and more people joined the system, and so Athens found itself at the head of an empire that was quite vast. But in those empires, they were not living with the exact code that the people in Athens were prescribing. In other words, there was unruliness all around the suburbs in different areas, in different areas that were supposed to be under the control of Athens, but they technically were not. And so at a point, when Athens felt that they had to do something about the situation, they, brought in a man called Draco, from whom we get the idea of draconian laws. They brought in a man called Draco and told Draco to set up laws. And so Draco brought up harsh laws for the society. But those laws eventually were not able to curb the tendencies of, the entire country, the entire Greek empire to be led. Was not able to curb the unruliness. And so Draco himself was eventually killed anyway. And then they brought in another man who was Solon. Solon was somebody who was very popular across all, all the entire Greece. And so they brought in Solon to organize the society. And Solon said, okay, you know what, we're going to divide the society, the Greek empire, into four classes. He divided them into four classes and said, this is the ruling class. The ruling class was at the head of that chain. And he swore them, he bound them to that law. And then, because they had given him power, and only he was able to amend the law, he swore them to that law, bound them to that law, and he took a 10-year voyage away from that city, expecting that they would live by the law. But no sooner had he gone than one of his cousins, Pisistratus, took over power forcefully and imposed himself as a monarch, as a usurper monarch on the people of Greece. They overthrew him. Pisistratus aligned himself with another of the four classes that Solon had divided, and he also overthrew power and took over power again. They overthrew him again, he took over power again. They exiled him, he took over power again. And this went on for a while. After a while, the Greeks saw that, look, this system of government is not working, this idea is not working. And so they brought in another man, Cleisthenes. Now, Cleisthenes propounded, he's considered by many to be the father or one of the helpers, or one of the catalysts of democracy. Cleisthenes came, he organized the entire society into about 10 different classes, and it wasn't even on the basis of how wealthy you were, it was mainly on the basis of the area you lived in. But then he also made it representative. In other words, he chose over 10 people from each, they were called bulls. 10 bulls were chosen, 10 people rather, were chosen to be part of the bull, were chosen, sort of the legislature, they were chosen to be part of that, and it could be anybody, it was by law, so it could be anybody, so it could be you tomorrow, it could be me tomorrow. And these are the foundational ideas that form democracy. In other words, that when you are in power, it could be somebody else tomorrow, and so what you should do is that you try to use power to balance out society and make sure that everyone is treated fairly, so that when someone else gets there tomorrow, that person can also do the same, and your own people will be benefited. So these are the foundational ideas of democracy, and the things that make us understand. These are the things that take rocket science out of government. So Cleisthenes, laid that foundation for democracy. And when they discovered that some people were becoming too powerful or too influential in the system, they invented the idea of the ostraca, which was a sort of ballot, which is where we get our own idea of ballot. Ostraca is also where we get the word ostracism from. So they would make sure that people vote. You write the name of somebody you don't want in the city, someone who was too influential, you write his name on the ostraca and then submit it, and then they would tally it. Whoever had the highest number, no matter how rich you were, no matter how influential you were banished from that city. And that was how they continued over a period of time. And that was the center point of democracy. That was how democracy started in that place. And from the Greek kingdom, we go to the example of the English of England. That they also had, from Henry the First, from the period of Henry the First in the 12th century, down to the period of King John. They had the King John, his authority was being challenged, and so he came up with the idea of Magna Carta, which was a sort of agreement between the monarchy and the people. Between the monarchy and the people. And but King John did not adhere to the Magna Carta, and so eventually the people kept revolting. There were long wars. They came to agreement with the monarchs, successive monarchs after King John. They came to agreement with them and said, we're going to have a parliament. So eventually the power of the monarchy kept reducing, the power of the people kept increasing, and as it increased, they were eventually able to depose kings. So they were able to remove kings, and that signified, that was the foundation of the democracy that you see in England today. Now, I bring these two examples to show that you can attempt to govern society by different methods, but Once you adhere to the principles of democracy, governance becomes easier. Once you adhere to the principles of democracy, governance becomes easier because democracy started out as a people agitation. It started out to produce a government that is people oriented, and this is why we at the we did a seminar last in February. We did a seminar in February under the banner of the Legacy Discussion Circle, and that seminar addressed the topic was the evolution of democracy and laws. The evolution of democracy and laws. You should watch it. The video is also here on YouTube. Now, the idea was to show you that democracy is what makes government easier. It is about the people. Everything in democracy should be focused on the people. And over the years, people have tried different methods of governance. When you practice different forms of government, such as aristocracy, such as the monarchy, such as oligarchy, or plutocracy, or any of the other any of the other crises that societies can be governed by, you don't get the best result for the greatest good of the greatest good for the greatest number, because there's nothing that binds you strictly to those people. But what democracy does is that democracy makes your power dependent on the people. In other words, because your power is dependent on the people, you have to please the people, you have to satisfy the people, you have to do good by the people, for you to make it, for you to be a successful leader. But many of our leaders in Nigeria today, across board, across states to federal level to local government level, across board, many of our leaders today don't have an idea of what democracy is about. They don't have an idea of how democracy evolved. They don't have an idea of the various trials and error that had happened before democracy became what it is today, the global brand for leadership that it is today. When you have democracy, government no longer is rocket science, because you understand what you're supposed to be doing in government. You understand that government is for you to do the greatest good for the greatest number of people. Why? Because democracy ensures that the source of your own power is not yourself, is not God, it is the people. And if the source of your power is the people, then that means you have to satisfy the people. And so when you do not understand that concept of democracy, you will not have an idea of what you should be doing in office. And to bring that point home, but before I get there, I should mention the example of America. America was a society that pulled out. It was, a lot of people migrated from Europe, from United Kingdom, from different parts of Europe, basically. A lot of them migrated to the land that is now known as the Americas, the United States of America. They migrated there. So when you hear places like New Hampshire, that means there's a Hampshire back in England. When you hear places like New Orleans, that means there's an Orleans somewhere. When you hear New York, that means there's a York City somewhere. When you hear basically, all those cities. So people from there, migrated to the land that is now known as the United States of America. And then they wanted to form an ideal society. They wanted to form a society where everything would work. They wanted to form a society where equality was achievable. And so they gave themselves some certain laws. And in the 17th century, at the beginning, when they started in the 18th century, rather, when they started this country, someone visited that place. His name is Alexis de Tocqueville. Tocqueville visited it and noticed how America was organizing. So he gave us the idea of what society should be. Now, this period was the period that was after the time of the Jeremy Benthams, the John Stuart Mills, the John Locke's, and so on and so forth. They had brought up various ideas, various concepts: liberty, egalitarianism, utilitarianism, welfareism. They had brought up all these concepts, and these concepts formed the bedrock of American presidential system as it is today, which is where we, Nigeria, also borrowed our own system from. Now, the idea the entire idea of government basically is to ensure that the people have better lives by your leadership. Democracy is the first thing that guarantees that, because democracy ties your power directly to the people, and so you have no option as anyone in office than to satisfy the yearnings of the people. When you satisfy the yearnings of the people, then you can be guaranteed another return into office. But we'll come to how Nigeria itself breaches that process. But talking about the constitution, which is the second part of what takes the rocket science out of government, democracy is the first part. We've seen that. The second part is the constitution, and specifically the Nigerian constitution. Now, in talking about the Nigerian constitution, we discover that a lot of our leaders in office today, I can bet across board, I've never studied the Nigerian constitution from start to finish. So they do not even know exactly what the constitution says about governance. And that is why governance will remain rocket science to them, because they have no idea. of the reason for being in office, they have no idea of what they should be doing. Never mind that many of them swore to this constitution by their religious books, either the Bible or the Quran. Many of them swore to the constitution, but they do not understand the provisions of the constitution. Now, the Nigerian constitution, in its opening paragraph, in the preamble, which is one of the most important parts of any constitution because it tells you the idea of why that country, like the vision statement basically of any company or the vision statement of an organization. The preamble of that constitution says, "We the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, having firmly and solemnly resolved to live in unity and harmony as one indivisible and indissoluble sovereign nation under God, dedicated to the promotion of inter-African solidarity, world peace, and international cooperation and understanding, and to provide for ourselves a constitution for the purpose of promoting good government and the welfare, good government and the welfare of all persons living in our country based on freedom, equality, and justice, and for the purpose of promoting and for the purpose of consolidating the unity of our people, do hereby make, enact, and give to ourselves the following constitution." The two central things there, but rather a few central things. We the people. The constitution starts with "we the people." Now, never mind. Of course, we'll, in subsequent episodes of this series, we'll get into that. We'll get into how the constitution came about. But for now, let's agree it is what every office holder in Nigeria swore to uphold, and so therefore that should form the raison d'être, the reason of their existence in office. So it says "we the people." So the constitution starts with focusing on the people of Nigeria. Okay, now it also talks about for the purpose of promoting good government and welfare, which, as I explained earlier on, a key principle of it is the greatest good for the greatest number, the welfare of the Nigerian people. That this should be your reason for being in government. So government should not be rocket science ordinarily when you understand, when you've read the constitution and understand that good government is tied to welfare and it's about the people. It's not necessarily about you being in office. It talks about the principles: freedom, equality, justice. That these are the principles for which society will be formed. When you breach those things, when you breach the constitution which you swore to uphold, government becomes rocket science because you have no idea of the connection between the welfare of the people and good government. It eludes you. But the constitution doesn't stop there. When you move further down into section 14, section 14 of the constitution makes it even clearer to us. Section 14 of the Constitution says, "The Federal Republic of Nigeria shall be a state based on the principles of democracy and social justice." The concept of social justice itself is that people have better lives, is your responsibility as a state unto the people. And it says it is hereby accordingly declared that sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria. The Constitution makes it clear. Sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria, from whom the government through this Constitution shall derive all its authorities and its power. But subsection 2 is subsection B. We are talking about section 14, subsection 2. Paragraph B. Now, paragraph B makes it even clearer. Paragraph B says, "The security and the welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government." Look, if that is the only part of the constitution that you understand, governance will not be rocket science to you. If the only part of the constitution that you understand is this section 14, subsection 2, paragraph B, that the security and the welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. Understand that, and you deploy your energies towards fulfilling that aspect of the constitution, towards pursuing the security and the welfare of the people, then governance will not be rocket science to you. In other words, there is a way that countries should be administered that will lead those countries to development and good governance. There is a way that Nigeria was designed to be administered, and it is that the government should have a heart for the people. This is the foundation of democracy. These were the ideas that the Greeks came up with when they were trying to form their society, when they came up with the concept of democracy. In other words, that the fact that somebody is a monarch, the fact that somebody inherited the leadership is not always a guarantee of good outcomes. Leadership in politics, political leadership, secular societal leadership is not always a guarantee of good outcomes. You can't just depend on it. And so what they did was, democracy tied the fate of the leader, of the political leader, democracy tied his fate directly to the people. In other words, your mandate emanates directly from the people, and because your mandate emanates directly from them, you are beholden to them, and so you want to pursue their welfare. You want to, because it is a game of numbers, you want to pursue the greatest good of the greatest numbers. And so when democracy is adhered to, rocket science, government is no longer rocket science. When the Nigerian constitution is adhered to, government is no longer rocket science. So the single question that you would ask at every point in time is, how will this benefit the life of the people, and how many people will this benefit? So if somebody brings a proposal to you and says that we want to construct a clinic, or want to construct hospitals, want to construct a diagnostic center, a cancer mega general hospital, want to consult, want to build it in your state, what you'll be asking is, how many of my state citizens are going to benefit from this? Because even in the area of healthcare, you see so many governors, launching projects and saying that they are building this cancer diagnosis. How many of people actually have cancer? So if you are building a big, massive hospital where people will come to from different states, yes, there's some benefit in it, if we get into it. But at the nitty-gritty of it, what the people of your state need is actually primary health care. It's actually more trained doctors who are going into the villages, setting up clinics, little clinics all over the place. So that healthcare is readily available to the people. But rather than that, a lot of people build one giant massive hospital in the state capital, and then everyone is patting your back and saying that you have won. No, that's not the idea of a win, because it is not the greatest good for the greatest number of the people. It's not something that prioritizes them. And so you have people, building bridges, where there's no water, building bridges basically where there's no need for it, but because they are vainglorious projects. The idea of the win for them is that, people will associate them with that project, but not necessarily to impact the lives of the people. That is not how it is supposed to be, and that is why democracy ties your fate as a leader to the people. The problem is that, in Nigeria, we have breached democracy. People are not as beholden to the people as should be. They are beholden to the security agencies who help them to rig, to the godfather who helped them, got them into office. They are beholden to various things and not the people. When you are beholden to the people, there is no way that your outcome will not be good. There is no way that you will not perform in office for the people, because you understand that your being in office is because of them. And so democracy takes the rocket science out of government by making sure that government depends on the people. And so when you are in office, if you satisfy the people, you get re-elected. If you don't satisfy the people, you don't get re-elected. Look at education. Somebody would rather build a massive school, paint the schools, but you are not concerned about the quality of teachers who are there. If you are concerned about the quality of teachers who are there, you would be thinking more of how to educate teachers and ensure that teachers are impacting the lives of the students, the greatest good for the greatest number, to make something out of those children in society. But that's not the situation in Nigeria, and that is why government continues to remain rocket science. Don't forget, democracy and the constitution take the rocket science out of government. In other words, when democracy is adhered to, when the constitution is adhered to, government is no longer rocket science. The reason why government is rocket science to many of our leaders in office is because they have no concept of democracy, no idea of the Nigerian constitution beyond the parts that concern how they are elected. They have no idea of their reason for being in office. And when you do not have an idea of what it means to win, you are just going to be like that soccer player who takes the ball and dribbles everybody on the pitch, but fails to put the ball in the net of the opposing team. And because he doesn't know doesn't know what a win is, everything he does in that game doesn't matter. He can never win in that office, and that game will be like rocket science to him. He'll wonder to himself, why are we not winning? I've dribbled everybody on the pitch. How come we didn't win that match? So he needs someone to sit down with him and to explain to him that this is what it means to win in this game. In a nutshell, this is the lesson of this video, and this clarifies the idea that government is equal to rocket science. Number one, when a political leadership understands and embraces the concept of democracy, governance is straightforward and simple. Number two, understanding the Constitution of Nigeria, and I might add the founding structure, but mainly understanding the Constitution of Nigeria, understanding what it is about, removes the rocket science from governance. And number three, the idea of a win in political leadership is simply the greatest good for the greatest number of people. When you have those three things as in your arsenal, when you have those three things as a part of you, governance becomes simple. Governance is no longer rocket science. So democracy and the constitution take the rocket science out of government. I thank you very much for listening. Do subscribe to this YouTube channel, as I'll be bringing regular updates. And then if you have questions on political leadership, on this aspects of political leadership or democracy, or how government should work, or about Nigeria itself, I would love to discuss them on video, and make the videos short. But as soon as the entire this global pandemic is over, we will be resuming our sessions, physical gatherings. We started the first one in February under the banner of the Legacy Discussion Circle. You can watch that video here. It's a lengthier explanation of some of the things that I've described in this short video. So you can as soon as we start that, we would have more opportunities. And the first one we did, we chose only 20 people. This time around, next time we started, we'll choose a number slightly more than that, and then just grow it that way and build ourselves in this line of political leadership. So, but thank you very much for watching. You spent your data to watch, so I'm glad you've made the time worth it. If there's any comment, if there's any feedback, any suggestion that you want to give me, or anything you want me to discuss, please feel free to reach out on Twitter. I'm at Demola Riwaju. I'm not sure I've mentioned my name here, but I think by now anyone watching this should know. My name is Demola Olaiwaju. I'm a political strategist, political analyst, and well, some people will say a bit of political history. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for watching, and have a wonderful day.